Relationships. Now that we're in part 3, let's talk about some of Sanae's relationship. One of her major ones will be the bloody goddesses she's living with, Suiko and Kaneko. Sanae serves as the shrine maiden of Kaneko Yashika and Suiko Moriya and moves with them to Gensokyo. Sanae is also Suiko's distant descendant. Yeah, you heard that right. This girl, this child-looking goddess who's barely taller than Chirino, gave birth. Let that sink in your mind for a bit. Whoever did the duty certainly had a lolly complex, or she asexually reproduced, whichever came first. During the events of Mountain of Faith, Kaneko sends Sanae out to collect faith. Much like Yukari's use of Ran and Shen, Sanae can summon Kaneko and Suiko in her spell and skill cards in Hiso Tensoko. Another person who is of no surprise is Reimu Hakurei. Sanae appears to have a friendly relationship with Reimu as she has been visiting the Hakurei shrine on numerous occasions, both in the prologue of UFO and in Waldenhorn Hermit. Sanae is even tasked with minding the shrine while Reimu is training with Kaizen, and we all know how that training turned out. Marisa is another person in her circle. Sanae frequently meets Marisa on her visits to the Hakurei shrine and they seem reasonably friendly. The last notable one would have to be Kaizen. Sanae lives on the Yokai Mountain near to Kaizen and are considered neighbors. They meet fairly often and are on friendly enough terms. Kaizen is a bit critical of Sanae as well, a bit to a much lesser extent than Reimu. Sanae describes her as living in a large mansion, corrected by Kaizen as being a training dojo. Fun/interesting facts. We're finally into the fun facts section of Sanae, hence the name. And trust me, she's got plenty to work with. Who here is a good drinker? I don't know about myself as it's been a while since I had any, but I do know that Sanae is someone who doesn't like their alcohol. It seems that she has a relatively low alcohol tolerance compared to other characters. In one of the endings of Mountain of Faith, she gets extremely nervous when informed of the constant drinking parties the Tengu will hold, with the narrator commenting that she'll just have to put up with it. And in Wild and Horned Hermit chapter 19, she's constantly distressed about being made to drink. Looks like she won't be playing any beer pong anytime soon. Earlier, I discussed about how Sanae's spell cards are themed after various religious/odd events. Now it's a good time to showcase those spell cards. The first one is Miracle of Frofrotsky, which is a phenomenon which unnatural things fall from the sky, like frogs. I could imagine Chirino exploding from the happiness/excitement if it were to happen. The next one is Sea Opening, the day the sea split, which is a reference to Moses crossing of the Red Sea in order to lead the Israelites away from Egypt as described in the Exodus of the Old Testament. The last one I'll mention is Miracle, God's Wind, which is based on a kamikaze that sunk the invading Mongolian fleets, saving Japan. Gotta love Mother Nature. I was also talking about Hiso Tensoko, that you can summon Suiko and Kaneko to help you. This part is where things get funny. In Sanae's last stage, she fights Suiko. Even though you're fighting said goddess, she can still summon Suiko to attack herself. Like mentioned a long time ago, taking beating yourself up to a whole new dimension. So Sanae pops up frequently in Waldenhorn Hermit. Chapter 6 is one instance where her geekiness shows up. Reimu and Marisa captured an electric animal and told Sanae about it. She's thinking about what creature this electric animal could be, so she assumes an eel or catfish since they're creatures from the outside world that she knew could discharge electricity. Her next guess is good old Pikachu. The outside world knowledge coming to play there. I wonder what her Pokemon team would be like. The last, but probably in my opinion the most interesting of Sanae's fun fact, is her absence in Hopeless. Hopeless was a religion game using Shinto, Buddhism, and Taoism. You'd think a religious character like Sanae would have showed up as a playable character, considering she just showed up in 10 Desires, the game before Hopeless. The fans were confused as to why this was the case. Zune said there was a reason to it. In the printworks, we're told why this was the case. In chapter 19 of Wild and Horned Hermit, Sanae complains that Kaneko, or possibly them, not taking action in those two incidents. The two incidents she was referring to was Hopeless and DDC, which at the time the chapter was discussing, and it was the newest game. Kaneko replies kindly that she must calm down and in another scene tells her that the settlement of negotiations with the Tengu about the installation of an aerial tramway. She remarks that she or they've been always busy for completing it. Along with Sanae also knowing the negotiations had been very long, it should be implied that Kaneko stopped Sanae from taking actions on the incidents for some reason. For example, because Kaneko wanted to concentrate her mind on the negotiation, because Kaneko couldn't find it worth doing to take actions in the incidents, or something else. To add another reason to her absence in DDC, Marissa points out to Sanae in the same chapter that Sanae hasn't used her tool regularly. In other words, it isn't so well used as to build its own ego and to get it in Rampage. An important mystery solved, in my opinion anyway.